Welcome back to the Bounce Podcast. I'm your host Ayub, and today we have Charlie Johnston joining us. Standing at 6'10", Charlie is an Australian basketball player who is currently playing college basketball overseas for California State University. Charlie, thanks for joining us.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
No worries, bro. So I want to kind of start talking about college basketball because I know you got overseas recruitment. So how was that?
Yeah, it was good. It was it all came by pretty quick. Kind of decided I want to do it. January the year I went, so January last year, and then I basically started off like you just make a Twitter account and get all the film from games and stuff, chop it up and make a highlight tape and just try and get out to as many coaches as you can. And I had a bunch of help on the way from coaches and mates and stuff like that, and guys that I knew that had gone to college or were going to college. So it was really quick though. Like it all went in like a matter of months, and then all of a sudden I knew I was heading over there, and like a matter of weeks I was like, wow, this is really quick. But it was a great experience for me the first year.
Yeah, well, how was that feeling? Because I know for a fact you would have been off the moon. Like you would have felt crazy.
Yeah, it was like I started off playing. Didn't think about college at all. It's kind of just I picked it up really late. Like came into basketball when I was 17, so I'm 20 now. So it was my third year playing, and then it was like started to get looks at from coaches, and I was like, oh, I can really give this thing a crack. So I was like, and then I had a couple interviews and like video calls with coaches, and was talking to some pretty good schools for a while there. And I think what happened with me is that because I was so late, it was hard to get. I was getting a lot of interest, but it was hard to secure like spots at bigger schools because obviously they recruit quite early in the process. So I had a couple JUCO offers, and I was actually going to commit to a JUCO in Georgia, and I had my letter of intent done and everything, and then got a call from a coach, an Australian coach that was in UC Santa Barbara at the time, John Riley, and he said, what are you looking at the moment? And I was like, oh, well, I've got this and this and all that. And he was like, oh, well, what would you think about Cal State Monterey Bay? And I was like, oh, that would be pretty cool because it was Division II and it's on the coast in California. So I was pretty pumped up, and then got in touch with their head coach there, and I had 2 calls with him, and he offered me a scholarship. But I remember like the first calls, me, mom, and him were on the Zoom call, and like straight away I was like, oh, this guy's like a really good bloke, and from what the sounds of it, like the program was really good, and like location, and he'd had a couple other Aussies in the past, and there was a couple there at the time. So I was like, oh, this could be a really good move for me, and I was just so excited because, like as I said, it went from nothing to a lot real quick. So it was just a really exciting process.
What were your expectations going to United States? Because obviously that would have been a massive change from Australia to United States. Like honestly, the culture difference is crazy.
Yeah, it was. And I think the biggest thing about that is biggest thing about going to college is moving to a completely different, like it's the other side of the world basically. So it's like, it's huge culture shock. Like everyone is a lot different to how we do things. Like a lot of things are different. And it took a while to get used to. Probably the first 2-3 months I was kind of finding my way a little bit. It did help that there were other Aussies there, and there was one Aussie, he was a senior, so he'd been in America for the last 4 years. So it was a good transition because of that, but I can definitely see in someone else's circumstances going to a school with like no Australians or any coaches not knowing how Australians are and how we kind of go about our life, it would be a lot different. But I think because of my situation, it was a lot easier, but definitely going to America is, even just the basketball in general, is just so much different. They just play different, and it's a completely different experience.
Well, were you saying that? Do you think like if you went to a different college, it would have been like either like I wouldn't say worse experience, but it would have been harder for you?
Yeah, I think so. Because talking to a couple guys that went to other schools, a couple of my friends went to like schools in Kansas and like middle of America. It's a completely different ball game out there. Like, I was in a nice area with like a lot of people, like a pretty dense like population and stuff. So it was more like a bigger city, and there's more to do. But I think you can find yourself getting stuck. Like, it's a big choice to pick a college, but you don't want to find one that's like in the middle of nowhere, like in the middle of America where it's really, really hot or really, really cold. And then, yeah, there's like no people that live there. So it's basically just you stuck on campus 24/7. Like,
Yeah.
only thing you know is training, and that's it really. So it's like, it can be like that sometimes. So you just kind of have to get the right area, and kind of go from there really.
I know college ball is completely different from Australian ball. Was it more mentally or physically challenging?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there was aspects of both. I think the pace in college is just that little second, just a second faster. I think at the start of the season I realized that, and it took me a couple of games to get into the flow. I think I was just probably about half a second behind everyone. But mentally, yeah, it's tough because, especially for me, because those guys have grown up their whole life like just training every day, like living, breathing basketball. And for me to come from playing two completely different sports to only have played basketball for such a short time, I think I was a couple steps behind, but I caught up pretty quick because you're training every day, like 3 hours a day, sometimes even longer, like 2 workouts, 3 workouts a day. It's pretty full on. So you kind of have to just give it your all from the start. Otherwise you kind of get lost in it a little bit, I think.
What was the other sport that you played before basketball?
I grew up, my dad played international cricket. So I grew up playing cricket, and I also played field hockey. So it was completely different to basketball.
Yeah.
I don't know why, to be honest. I was kind of wasting my height for a lot of the time because I've always been tall. So I don't know what I was doing, but it was just, I was pretty good at cricket. Played like some Australian juniors and stuff, and then I don't know, I just kind of grew out of it and was like, I want to try something different. And I was 6'8" by the time I started playing basketball, so it was a good decision for me.
6'8", all my days, man.
Yeah.
Well, what's like the environment at your college games? Because it would have been definitely, I guess, more vibrant. Like it would have just been like a lot more people. And how was that environment compared to like Australia?
Yeah, it was pretty in your face at times. I played NBL 1 before I left, so that was it gave me a little bit of a gauge of like a bigger crowd and noisy and away games and stuff, but it wasn't really anything compared. Like, you'd have like some schools would have like a full band on the side, like playing like music, like they have their band like instruments going when you're shooting free throws, and like the crowds are going crazy and like stomping the floor and all that. And it was, some crowds went real big. Our school, well, my school wasn't the biggest in the conference, but there was a couple schools that like you play in front of like 5, 6, 7,000 people, sometimes more. And it's just like, it's a whole new, it just adds another like element to your game, really. You just gotta like lock in from the start and kind of block out the noise. But I definitely found it challenging sometimes. Like, you get people on the sidelines that are just chirping you the whole game. So it's like, you just kind of gotta stay focused through it. But it was very different.
Yeah, 100%. That would have been a lot harder to focus, especially because the instruments in the background. That would be crazy.
Yeah. It was crazy.
What does it feel like to jump into that skill level straight from like NBL 1?
It was a bit easier because I had played NBL 1. I think if I jumped from youth league or like 18s or something, it would be a bit harder. But it's just like they're just more athletic, they're faster. Like the one thing is that they don't miss. So like you give guys more than your arm's length space. It's going up and it's going in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that was the biggest adjustment, is that you can't sit off anyone. Like the bigs can shoot. Everyone on the floor can shoot this, like almost the same as the next guy. So, and even the bench players too, like the standard doesn't drop when the subs come in. So it's just on go the whole time. You got to know where your guy is, and it's just so fast. You kind of just blink and you miss it. So yeah, I think that was the biggest difference. If you want to make it in the NBA, you need to have a 3-point shot. You need to have athleticism. It's like you need to tick all those boxes. So I think it changed how younger guys grew up and were training. So there's less like old style back to the basket bigs. Like there's just not many of them around anymore. So I think it's just adapted the game completely thanks to those NBA guys that really just light it up night in, night out.
100%. How much do you think like your game has improved over the years? Because how long were you playing in college, by the way? Have you been?
I just finished my freshman year, so I just came back from my first year.
Well, how like in that
Yeah.
time span, how much has your skill evolved?
I think it's evolved a lot. I think because before I went away, I was playing all the competitions out here, and then I find myself when I've come back, it's just like that much easier. And it's my mindset's kind of switched a little bit. That's like I have to be doing this every day, because I've been doing it for the last 9 months, like training so much that it's kind of got me into a routine that's just got me like shooting a lot every day, like working out like so much, like twice a day. Even on rest days, I still find a way to work out. So I think that's changed my game like a lot. And I think, yeah, it's just every aspect of my game, I think, has just changed so much from being over there, and how I look at it as well. How I look at the game has changed. So I think it's just it's almost turned me into like a different player, I think, coming back.
Well, would you say like playing like the games itself or themselves in college, or would you say like the training regimen and like programs have helped you more?
Um, I think for my personal experience, I needed to see more game, like play more game time. Because when I started, like the old like COVID and everything, like I didn't play that much. And it was more like the in-game stuff, like how you make reads in a game. Like you can play 5-on-0 offense in practice and do that for the rest of your life, and it's not going to prepare you to play in game. So I think the best way to practice for games is to play. So I think me actually, because I started most of the year on my team, so I think that in itself has been the biggest thing that's helped me progress, is just getting into games and trying to play as much as I can.
Well, what's it been like just moving? Like, how's the food over there?
Oh yeah, the food's interesting. We have our on-campus food and stuff, but it's not amazing. Like I'm on a full scholarship, so I get all my food for free and stuff. So I think that cost of living is like pretty much nothing, but the level of food is also dropped a little bit since I've been over there, and everything is fried and fatty and stuff. So it's like you just eating like bad food a lot of the time, but you can find ways to keep it healthy. And I think like coaches try and help us do that and stuff. So, and like when we travel, our food's always good when we travel. Coaches always find a way to get a good, healthy restaurant or like takeout place or whatever. But it's a lot of fast food, and everything's a lot bigger portion wise. And
Yeah, do you miss Australian food?
yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like my bed and Australian food were the two things that I missed the most. And I came home and I was like, take me to this place, this place. And then I was just like, the next thing is get me into my bed. Like I just wanted to get into my own bed and eat some good home cooked meals. You know what I mean?
100%, 100%. Well,
Mm.
what advice would you give to like someone who wants to experience college ball or even get into college for basketball?
I think the biggest thing is just get to know as many people as you can. Play against the best guys you can find. Like I think the biggest way to get better at the game and get yourself to a level that's good enough to go to college is to like get beat, like get hooped on by guys that are a lot better than you, because you learn from getting scored on and you pick up moves from guys that are making these moves on you. So I think if you want to get over to college, put yourself in the environment with guys that are also have similar mindsets and similar goals, or guys that are coming back from college or have been to college. Like I think that's just the best scenario to put yourself in, and make sure you always get all your film after games, cut it all up and be ready to like send it out to anyone and everyone, and just reach out to as many coaches as you can, because at the end of the day, you never know. Like you never know where you're going to end up. Like you could get a lucky break and there's a spot free for you at a really good school. So you just always got to be prepared. And just make sure your grades are good too, because they do care about that. And a lot of people, they don't talk about that as much, but you also have to make sure that you're doing well in school, and because they do take that on board when they offer you a scholarship and stuff, because they don't want to have you as a burden and not passing classes because you'll be ineligible to play. So
Speaking about studying, what are you studying and how has it been like balancing studying and hooping together?
I'm doing a business and finance degree.
Mhm.
It's like a double degree. It's kind of confusing how they do it. It's not the same as over here. But it was tough for the first semester, I think, just because I had a lot of like admin stuff I had to do at the start, and making sure I was getting into all my classes, because it was hard because I was over here trying to do that. So like the time difference and stuff. But then when I got into it, it was pretty good. We do study hall with our coach. So it was like all the guys meet up like 3-4 times a week for an hour, and we just like bang out our homework, study, and we'd have tutors and stuff. So they make it as easy as they can for you, but then you have to put in the work yourself to make sure that you are getting your grades and stuff. Like none of my teammates were ineligible, but guys came close. Like there's a minimum GPA you have to get. And I knew a few guys from other schools in my conference were ineligible for the second semester. So it does happen, but you can, if you stay on top of it and like manage your time well, and not just leave it to the last minute. I think that's the biggest thing, is as soon as you get something, like try and get it done. But the schooling is full on in college, especially with the training and stuff, but you can definitely get it done. Yeah.
I know you said you did study hall 4 times a week or like 3 times a week. How did you do training? How many times did you train every week?
We train, it depended on the time of the year. So preseason, it would be Monday to Sunday, so every day. We'd have like weights 8 till 9, and then we get on the court 9 to 11, 9 till 12. So it's probably like 3-4 hours a day. That was preseason. Preseason was pretty full on, like it would make or break you really. And then during season, we do a lot of traveling, so it's kind of just like making sure we stay fit and stay healthy while we're traveling so much. So it's more like 3-4 times a week we train. And then the rest of the time we'd be traveling.
Yeah.
And then like the morning of games, like you'd go shoot or whatever, but you're obviously not going to train on a game day. And then postseason is just kind of just one-on-one workouts with coach, trying to just focus on things you're going to get better on for next year, and things that you got to focus on that he wants you guys to do or me to do for the next season.
100%. Well, going from, obviously you played field hockey and cricket, you went from
Yeah.
from those two. how was like that transition? How did you like what gave you like the kind of idea to get started with basketball? Because obviously that's like such different sports. So how did you get the idea?
I think I give a lot of credit to one of my close friends, Josh. I played cricket with him all through like my juniors and stuff, and then he'd always played cricket and basketball, and his dad was the youth league coach at the time, and his dad played a lot of basketball. Like he played for the Kings and played pro ball and stuff, and then I think I hurt my back playing cricket. I was out for like 5 months or whatever, and then coming back from that, it was a long process for cricket wise. So I was like, oh, like I don't know how this is gonna go, whatever. And then he was like, oh, why don't you come down to the stadium and like play local comp with me or whatever. So I was like, all right, I'll do this, like give it a try, and see how it goes. And then like first couple of games, I was horrible when I first started. Like I was unker, I couldn't catch, couldn't shoot, like smoke layups left, right, and center. I was really just like fast and tall, and like I could jump. So it was like those three things kind of pushed me through 18s and 18 reps. I sat right on the end of the bench, didn't see the court once, I don't think. And it was just like such a new experience, but it was something that I wanted to try, because those other like cricket and cricket was my dad's sport. So it was kind of like, I wanted to have something of my own, and none of my family played basketball. So I was like, I kind of want this to be my thing. So it was just kind of, that was the like why I made the decision to switch.
That would have been tough though. Like how was that? Well, how was that feeling? Because like obviously, like being at the end of the bench, like what was like kind of your mental state? Were you like, oh, I need to get better. I need to like start training more. I need to do all this stuff. Or how was it? How were you kind of feeling?
Yeah, it was because I'd always been good at the other sports I'd played, and coming into a sport where I was like really bad at, or not really bad, I can't say that, but I was pretty bad compared to the other guys that I was playing with. So I was like, it was very motivating for me to try and get better at something that I wasn't good at. It was kind of just like a new challenge for me. And I had all the tools for it, and which helped obviously. And the coaching that I got from like guys around the club and older guys that I would play with was next level. So it was that. And then during COVID, it was like I had nothing else to do, so I just pick up a basketball like a lot, like 2-3 hours a day. Yeah. And just go out the backyard. You don't have anything else to do during COVID. I wasn't just going to sit there and play on my Xbox. So I was like, I want to go outside and get active. So I was like, I'll just make this my everyday thing. And then it just kind of went from there.
Because COVID was a time where like I feel like a lot of basketball people, like people who play basketball, had the opportunity to actually improve their game if they had like a court nearby. But obviously like a lot of people didn't. So like, do you reckon training in COVID, do you reckon that put you up a little step like above everyone else?
Yeah, I think it helped me catch up, as I kind of, with lack of a better way of saying it, as catch up to the other guys that had been playing for all that time. And I think I had a court nearby, but I didn't go to it that much as such. It was kind of just the hoop in my backyard. I had a pretty good like concrete backyard, so it was like I had a good setup there. And I think that time where I could kind of break the game down myself and kind of try and understand it myself from a different kind of angle, like a non-basketball kind of angle, definitely helped me to get an edge on some other guys, and just gave me time just to thaw it all out and just figure out how I would approach learning a new sport.
Well, so I guess you could just say like it gave you some more experience under your belt kind of thing. It was a way to kind of for you to, was it like a way for you to like kind of find out what style you played, or like how you wanted to play?
Yeah, I think so. And also just to break down the basic stuff. 100%. I don't think I was worrying too much at that point about whether I was going to be like back to the basket bit. I was just kind of trying to learn how to shoot, you know what I mean? Yeah, so it was like more of the basics at that point. Towards the end of COVID, I was figuring out what I was good at, figuring out what I needed to get better at. And and obviously I had some idea because I played a little bit before COVID. So I was like, oh, well, I need to improve on this and just keep getting better at that. And it did help a lot though.
Well, looking back at your basketball journey so far, what's like a moment that gives you like chills to think about?
I think the biggest thing would be we played a game. I think it was just, this is recent because there was a lot of stuff basketball wise that's like pretty irrelevant early on because it wasn't very good. So I think we had a game on the road in Portland. We were playing a school up there, and it was probably midway through the season, and I had a pretty bad start towards the start of the season because obviously I was getting used to the pace and stuff. But I had hit this point midway through where I was it was all clicking and all the training was relating to games and stuff. And we had a tight game against a school, and it went down to, I think we won by 2 or 3 maybe. But it was my first double of the season. I think I had 14 and 14. And I got the block shot for their last possession. So we were up by 3 and they needed to get a quick bucket. And guy drove to the basket and I got a block, and then we could hold the ball, and then we got fouled. So we had to knock down the free throws and stuff. So, and I think that was probably the biggest thing because the crowd was pretty sick up there, and we were an away game, and we'd won a couple in the last couple games. So it was like we were really starting to get rolling. And then after the game, there was a guy there doing the commentary and stuff, and then we came out the locker room and he pulled me over and like did a post game interview and stuff. So that was pretty surreal. Like it kind of, after that happened, I was sitting in the hotel that night. I was thinking back like 2 years ago, like I wouldn't imagine anything like that happening. So I think that was probably the biggest moment in my career so far that kind of just like put it into perspective how far that I have come in such a short time.
Yeah, that's actually that's a crazy story, because getting that block shot would have been a crazy feeling. I can't even imagine, like, especially because the crowd as well. That would have been so surreal.
Yeah, no, it was pretty crazy. I kind of had to pinch myself a little bit after the game, and the boys were all getting around me. I was like, wow, I didn't trying to process what just happened, really.
100%. Well, what were like kind of the biggest hurdles you faced in your basketball career so far, and how did you conquer them?
Well, coming into it, obviously, and after COVID, having to try and get myself into a team that had already been established. And a lot of the guys had been playing together for 6-7 years or whatever, and kind of coming in and almost stepping on people's toes a little bit. Like you have to kind of feel your way through the team. I think that was a big thing in my Australian career, like doing reps and stuff. And I think the biggest hurdle jumping over to the US would be just like fitting in with a bunch of guys that like from a completely different lifestyle. Like I'm an Australian from like South Sydney, and these guys are South Sydney and Ireland. So it's like a completely different thing from guys that had a couple teammates from like deep in LA, like projects in LA and like San Francisco and stuff. So it's like you come from different backgrounds, and then all of a sudden you gotta like, you say what's up, and then you hop on the court together and your teammates, you know what I mean? So that took a little while. Credit to my coach, he kind of brought us all together pretty quick. But I'd say, yeah, just trying to fit into teams that I'd just been put into, and come in as a new guy into a team and just trying to go about my business straight away. I think that's probably the biggest things that I've come across.
Especially because the difference in lifestyles between you and someone who grew up in America. Do you reckon, like, as an Aussie baller, what do you think like kind of set you apart from other players there?
Yeah, I think out here in Australia we play a lot more physical in some aspects. Not all. Like these guys are rough and like tough, and they've grown up, like they've gone through it a little bit. So there's that aspect. But I think we, like us on the court, we just like get into the nitty gritty stuff, like diving for balls and all that. I think just the effort that we give out, as an Australian baller, I think a lot of like our guys, I could probably speak for them saying that they come over there and just add that extra effort and intensity. And I think because we get such an opportunity to come from Australia to America, like we kind of have to prove it, like why we're meant to be there. Because America is on such a higher level, in their opinion, to Australia, that this Australian basketball guy's coming over, like he can't be all that, you know what I mean? So you kind of have something to prove, which has been proven by guys that have come through, like Giddy and Dyson and all that. Those boys that are in the NBA right now are tearing it up. So I think that's been a credit to them for putting Australia on the map and Aussie ballers on the map. But I think just having like a point to prove, and I think that ups our game in a lot of aspects.
In the early days, you were obviously playing cricket and field hockey, but looking back now, like, did you ever see yourself getting to this point?
No, I don't think I did. Like, it only really came to my mind that I would have a chance to get to this point probably when I was like, oh, well, I'll see if I can get recruited anywhere. Like it happened so fast. Like if I was to put myself in my shoes 2 years ago or meet myself from 2 years ago and be like, you just finished like first year of college in America playing basketball, I'd be like, no, you're lying. Like it's been such a roller coaster, and it's just been like in a millisecond, it's all happened. That's what it feels like to me anyway. It's just been so fast that started playing and now doing this and doing all that and training with NBL teams when 2 years ago I used to go watch them play, you know what I mean? And then now you're on the court with them, like training with them twice a week, and like those training with the Hawks boys at the moment, and you get to watch guys like Tyler Harvey and stuff, and a couple of the other guys on the team hooping at like Kudos or Win Stadium or something, and then all of a sudden, you're jumping in with them and you're playing on the same, well, not the same level, but you're competing with them at a high level. It's crazy. I couldn't see myself in that position when I was me 3 years ago. It's crazy.
Like, especially like starting out, you would have obviously like had your doubts and everything, and I feel like everyone goes through that as well, but you just got to push through and everything, and obviously you did, and which is sick. Well, I want to kind of talk about, obviously you were playing for the Sutherland Sharks before you went abroad. You went to college in America. So how was the experience playing for Sutherland Sharks? If you want to just talk about that for a quick minute.
Yeah, I think it was amazing. Like all those guys really brought me in and took me in as one of their own straight away, and then it was straight into training with the NBL 1 guys and especially the older guys, like the vets that were training with us at that time and playing. They really like took me under their wing, taught me what they knew and what they've come across through their career. And especially last year, we had three bigs that were two of them had been over to the US already, both at Division 1 schools, and one had just come back from playing pro in the Philippines. So we had those 3 guys ahead of me, and it was such a learning curve to just sit there and watch and guard those guys and try and score against those guys. So I think that experience in itself was the biggest thing that's happened to me in my like learning career in basketball. And Southo's such it's a smaller club, but it makes it so much better. It's just like we're all so close together, and having to not allowed to play NBL 1 this year because of the NCAA rules really sucked, because I wanted to play in that obviously for the Souther boys, but now they're not allowed to play, and then my coach wanted me to play youth at the highest division I could play, so I had to jump over down to Illawarra to play Division 1 Youth League,
Yeah.
which was probably like one of the harder decisions in my basketball, like having to leave Sutherland after they'd done so much for me and given so much to me. And I think like I still go watch their games after mine. Like I drive up and sit there and watch it in the Shark Tank, and the environment's it's sick. Like you don't get that many people there, but it feels like there's thousands. You know what I mean? So I think Sutherland's done a really good job creating a club that has a great environment and a good family and great player base too. Like there's no guys at that club that I'd be thinking about now and like, oh, that guy wasn't all that nice to me, or like, you know, that guy didn't really have any time for me, you know what I mean? So I think all those guys really took their time and to like introduce me into it and like bring me up through, and I got full credit, and I give a lot of credit to Sutherland basketball for where I'm at now.
Thinking back at it, like, do you think the connection with your teammates, or like even just in general, like your connections, having a good connection with a teammate or like the whole team in general, does that like kind of improve your game, or like even just like help just like your mental state, even though like if you're losing or you're winning, it doesn't really matter, it's still like that bond is still there?
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important things with the basketball team, because the key word there is a team. You can't win it by yourself. And you guys have to be close when it comes to times like close games and like big important matches that you got to win. And I think that's when a good team, culture-wise and like chemistry-wise, will come up against, they'll win against a team that's probably better on paper, but they don't gel as well. I think I'd pick a team of 5 guys that were average but knew each other inside out and were close over 5 superstars that didn't like each other. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be one-on-one basketball for 40 minutes. So I think having a good environment around your team and getting to know every guy, how they play, what they like and what they don't like on the court, what suits them and stuff. I think it really shows when it comes down to it that like that's what wins games, is knowing your teammates and having that relationship with your teammates that can push you and make you almost perform better. I think when you have a good relationship with your team, it's going to drive you to go get those 50-50 balls, or, you know, just put in that extra 5-6% for the team. So I think it's really important.
Going back to the Sutherland Sharks, did they play a role in you getting recruited to college at all, or was it just kind of like you posting on Twitter and the highlights and, you know, trying to get connections and all of that?
Yeah, I think there was a couple guys at the club that definitely helped me out, pointed me in the right direction, and there was a couple guys that made my highlight reel for me off the film from games and stuff, which was at the end of the day, it's the most important thing, because coaches aren't coming out here, so you have to send it to them. You know what I mean? So, but I think the biggest person that helped me get recruited was Rod Proctor, Tyrese Proctor's dad. Because I'm very close with Tyrese, who's at Duke at the moment. I stayed at his house for a little while, and like we got really close. So I think Rod was the biggest factor for getting me over there, just due to he went to college, he played pro, so he knew a lot of guys. And through Tyrese as well, like his recruitment was crazy, so he knew all these coaches, and I think he was the biggest thing. And he was a part of Sutherland till last year. He's now at Bankstown, but he was a big part there at the club with the junior development and stuff. But yeah, he definitely was the single person there that I'd probably give my credit to my recruitment to. He definitely pointed me in the right direction and got me in touch with the right guys, which was very helpful in my situation.
Would you say, like, for anyone listening or anyone who wants to like kind of play basketball professionally, or even college ball, or even just like, you know, to put their highlights out there, would you say to try to get the connections and like try to get coaches and more like, I would say connections. Would that help?
Yeah, I think so. The biggest thing though is just putting yourself out there, trying to get as much exposure as you can. But getting the connections is really important, because even if that's not the right spot for you, if that coach isn't the right fit, or you're not the right fit for him, he knows 100 other coaches, and so on, so on. And the more coaches you build a relationship with, the more coaches you're going to come across. So I think that's like a pretty big thing, is just get to know as many people as you can, and just build those relationships as well as you got to hoop. So you got to put some time and focus in on that. But yeah, definitely the relationships are important.
I want to talk about some of your highlights, and I want to talk about like kind of how you're a 6'10" athletic center. So I want to ask, what's the weather up there?
Yeah,
No.
that's probably the most common asked question to someone when I'm just walking around for me. It's
Yeah.
good, you know. I always try and find a different response to those questions. Try
Yeah,
and come up with something different instead of just giving the same answer every time.
no, but I'm joking. I've seen you online a couple of times. I've seen your highlights. So what would you say is your favorite highlight, or if you have a favorite highlight?
I think youth league last year. We were playing St. George, and I had a middle pick and roll with our point guard Josh, and he fed me a bounce pass, and I was probably halfway through the key, and I took off, and this one dude decided to jump with me, and I dunked all over him. And then we had a guy there that was doing the photography for NBL1, and he happened to rock up early, and he got this like shutter of a bunch of different photos and put it together, and it's the sickest thing I've ever seen. I wouldn't stop watching it that whole night. I was just looking at it, just watching on repeat. You got all the stages, like the jump and everything, and my reaction afterwards. I'd say that's my favorite highlight so far.
That is sick. That is sick. That actually, no, that sounds like a wild play. I like that. Well, I want to talk about your future goals and like your future career. So, what's up next for you, Charlie?
It's a good question. I think I've been thinking about it a lot lately with like family and coaches and stuff. And I think this next year is pretty important for me, to get myself set up to play professionally in the future, because that's the main goal. It's a lot of people's goals to make it to the NBA, and that's obviously in the future. That's my biggest goal in life, is to do that. But I got to set myself up to get in the right position to give myself the best chance to do that. So I think depending on how next year goes, really just got to put it in and grind, and get the best performances I can through the season. And then hopefully put myself in a position so that I can enter the transfer portal, and potentially get to a high D1 for next year, or for the year after next, sorry. So then, and then after that, it's just try and ball out there, get as much attention as I can, and dunk on a few people, and then it goes wherever from there. I'm lucky though, because I have an Irish passport, so I have a European passport, so there's a few more options open for me in terms of professional basketball. Obviously, been training with the Hawks a lot in Illawarra, which has been really good, and coach there, Jacob Jacomis, is a really good guy. And then a couple of weeks ago, went down to Southeast Melbourne, was training with the Phoenix down there. Got in touch with their coach. So there's a couple options in Sydney that I'm trying to explore right now. But there's so many opportunities. I just got to give myself the best chance to get into those, and we'll see what happens,
100%. I wish you the best. But what future goals? Obviously, like you got the NBA and you want to play professionally. But is there any other goals you want to kind of reach?
I want to play. Or I want to play for my country, for Australia. Play for the Boomers, and I think in this sport in particular, it's not as prioritized by a lot of those guys. Like they just want to. I'm not knocking off any of the top guys, but they kind of just want to make the most money they can and play the NBA and whatever. But I think it's one of my biggest goals in other sports and stuff is to play for Australia. So I think I'm going to carry that on to basketball. If I can get into a Boomer squad at some stage and play for them, that would probably make my career. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
all jokes aside, like NBA is amazing, but like playing for my country is just like a special thing.
100%.
And like other members of my family have done it, so it's kind of something that I just want to follow along and do it as well. And I'm not going to play basketball forever. Obviously not. So I'm not going to do a LeBron and play till I'm 50. So obviously have to get my priorities straight for when I retire. And maybe own my own company or something like that. I want to give back to communities in basketball that don't have facilities, especially Australian basketball. Because I know like it's tough I don't know what it's like where you're at, but in Sydney you can't get a court, and it doesn't make any sense because it's like the biggest city in Australia, like, you know what I mean? So it's like impossible to get a court, like, unless you're associated with a club there. So I think when all's said and done and I'm finished, I think I come back here and try and build something that will help the next generation of Australian ballers just to get as much basketball in as they can. And get us onto the same level as the US circuit and stuff like that. I think 100%. That would be one of my big goals too.
Oh, that's what we're trying to do here at Bounce as well. We're trying to get to Australian basketball players, and we're trying to get them more exposure as much as possible.
Yeah, it's sick.
Yeah, no, thank you. We want to end it off with a couple questions, a quick fire questions. So, first thing that comes into your head, just say it. The first one is, what was your favorite move on the court?
I'd say spin move in the post.
Best advice you've ever received?
Always live in the moment. Don't be looking ahead or behind. Always take it in as you go, and not be looking too far ahead. Just be in that moment, because life's too short, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think that would probably be.
I like that. Toughest person you've ever had to guard?
Shit. I'd say I had to Tyrese Proctor. We played once a little bit, and he's tough. It's a completely different to anyone else I've guarded, for sure.
What's your favorite pre-game meal if you have one?
That's a great question. I love food, so I got to think about this one for a second. It's not so quick fire, but I'm gonna think.
That's all right.
I'd say any type of pasta, because I can't narrow it down to a singular one, but I love pasta like carbonara or spaghetti or something, anything like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't have it too close to games, though. Otherwise, you start feeling like I don't know if I can swear on here, but you start feeling real bad mid-game.
Who's your dream teammate, past or present?
I'm gonna say Rajon Rondo. That's a different one, but his passing and his playmaking, and I think having him as a point guard would be insane. Yeah, I think it would make my life so much easier.
100%. Do you have a basketball shoe? Obviously, I have a basketball shoe. Do you have a favorite basketball shoe?
I'd say Kobe 5s. They're probably my favorite. I don't have a specific colorway. They're just perfect basketball shoe.
Who is the GOAT?
I'm on the Michael Jordan train. I don't know about you, but Michael Jordan. Yeah. I think you can't look past that man. He's a greatness.
Do you have a favorite song?
My music changes so often. Can I give you a favorite artist instead?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm gonna have to go with Gunna. I think Gunna's my favorite artist right now.
Yeah. No, I like that. Gunna has some good songs. Favorite basketball movie or a regular movie if you don't have a favorite basketball movie?
I wanna try and not be basic, but Coach Carter's just such a good movie. I don't think you can look past that as a basketball movie. Like Mike's pretty good too, but Coach Carter's my favorite for sure. And
the last one is favorite memory on a basketball court. That can be like at the start of your journey or like up until now.
My first NBL one, my first proper basketball game that I actually played in instead of sat on the bench. NBL 1. It was the very first NBL 1 game for the East. That was when they first started. And it was us, Sutherland versus Comets. And I checked in, and the crowd, like, because a lot of the guys had known me at this point, and I played with them in juniors and stuff, so they were watching and had all the parents and all that cheering on for me. And then I checked in probably like halfway through the game, and everyone was like yelling my name and stuff. And I think that's probably my favorite on-court basketball moment.
For sure. Well, that's the end of the quick fire questions. But I want you to, you can have the stage. You can tell anyone who's watching, anyone who's listening, tell them what you want to say, what you have coming up, whatever.
Yeah, so I think I'm just I'll keep it short, and I'll give a bit of advice. I think just take every opportunity that you get, and don't go into something with half a mindset that you're in it. Like, you have to be fully involved in what you're doing. And if you're not, don't worry, like, just cut it out. Like, you don't have to do it. But if you're going to do something, put 100% effort, 100% focus into it, and do it right the first time. And I think that'll show in the future when you start doing things like that. And you'll start to see the results quicker. I think you just got to give 100% into everything you do. And if you're not going to give 100%, I don't think you should be doing what you're doing. You know what I mean? So I think it's just give 100% or give nothing. You know what I mean?
100%. I like that advice. All right. Well, that's basically the end of the interview, or I guess podcast episode. Thank you, Charlie, for being our guest on the show and sharing your insights and experiences. It's been a blast.
Thank you. No, thanks for having me. It's a really great idea you guys have going on, and I hope you guys can grow it and get it as big as some of these top podcasts that are going around. And I think you guys definitely have the potential to. Great setup and really well run by you two. So I'm keen to see what you guys have going on in the future.
Thank you. We appreciate it.